Hello all, I have a magnitude of things to share with you today in the form of a wrap up where I shall be talking about the books I read and the films that I watched during January. So I think I will start off with the books. So the first book I finished in January was Little Miss Shire Goes Online Dating. I always want to say Little Miss Shire Goes Dating Online because that kind of rhymes, but switch the words, Jen, switch the words, get it right. So this is by Roger Hargreaves, which was, I believe, the actual original creator, illustrator, author of the Little Miss and Little Mister books. So as you can imagine, this is one of those kind of children's books switch into an adult lifestyle, so it does say for grown-ups. They've done this with the Ladybird books as well. Some of you may have seen them. So this one, as you can imagine, is Little Miss Shire trying to find her Mr. Right. Maria got this for me because it's very fitting with my life currently, and she clearly thought it'd be amusing for me to read, and she got that right. I really did enjoy it. As well as being absolutely hilarious and relatable, it was just a big nostalgic rush as well. It's reminiscent on the Little Miss and the Mr. Men kind of books. Did I say Little Mister before? I meant Mr. Men and Little Miss. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, it was nostalgic on that sort of situation, so I did enjoy reading it. It's got the same author, so it keeps the art style, but obviously it's got things that make it amusing as well. But as well as that, it is written by 3 other authors, Sarah Dakin, Lizzie Dakin and Liz Banks, and then it says it's an original concept and illustrated by Roger Hargreaves. So yeah, I'd recommend this. I'm going to have a look-see to see if I can find any of the others, because I'm assuming there's more in this little series. But yeah, it was fun nevertheless. The next book I finished, as you may have seen from my vlog, was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, which is the second book in the Harry Potter series. And I gave this a 5 stars. Now, I won't go crazy on this just because I have done a full vlog with, like, it's spoilery, so don't watch it unless you've read the book, but going into depth about my feelings as I'm reading it, and then at the end I've kind of wrapped it up in a review. I did this with the first book and you guys seem to enjoy that, so do let me know if you want me to continue on doing that for this series. Next up, hopefully soon, I'll watch the second film. I can't remember if I did a single review of that for the first one or not, or if I just included it in a wrap up, but look out for a review of the film, kind of comparing the two eventually. So yeah, I'll leave this here, but I really did enjoy this one. Pretty sure the rest of these books now are books that I've already given reviews to, so stay tuned for book reviews on these specific things. I will link them when they become available, of course. The next thing I picked up was something different for me, and it was a collection of poetry, which was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I had heard mixed things about this, so I kind of wasn't sure what I'd expect, but I ended up enjoying it. I gave it 4 stars. If you're interested in what I thought about it, then check out my review, but for now, that is this. After that, I decided to finally get around to reading Orange by Ichigo Takano, which is a manga collection. This one combines the first 3 volumes of manga, and so yeah, it's like a collective of the manga. It's not finished, basically. There's still more that I need to read. I really did like this one. I wasn't too sure how I was going to find it, just because it's not like a genre I typically go into. It's more like a slice of life sort of high school setting, but I really did like it. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and again, if you want to know my feelings and thoughts about it in depth, the video will be available soon. Lastly, for books, and tying in again with Rupi Kaur's debut, I decided to pick up The Sun and Her Flowers. This is the second poetry collection by Rupi Kaur. I ended up giving this a 3 stars. I didn't like this as much as the first one, and again, the video that I've reviewed Milk and Honey in, it's a combined review, so I also include this and kind of why I didn't like it as much as the first one. So again, if you want to know my thoughts and reasonings to the scores I gave them, then feel free to check those out. Of course, as usual, as I always say, my Goodreads reviews are up, so if you prefer a written format, my link's always in the description of the video, so check out the books that I've read and you can see written reviews instead. Now the books are quickly out of the way, it's time to review the films that I watched, starting with something that I will not be talking about very much once again, and that is when Marnie was there. So I gave this a 4 stars, and again I will explain why and what I enjoyed about it, what maybe I didn't enjoy about it in the full review. These should all be going up within the next couple of weeks, so if you don't come back to this video to go to the links direct, you know, they should be popping up eventually, so stay tuned. After that I decided to watch the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I gave it 4 stars. This is the second time I actually had watched this film, and I enjoyed it just as much as the first time. I think I actually liked it a little bit more than the first time because I now had the perspective of coming from reading the books, whereas the first time I hadn't read the books before. Now that I've read them, I can kind of see like similarities and differences between the media format and the books, so it just made me enjoy it that much more. I'm not sure if I've reviewed the film before. I know for sure that I've got a series review of the books, which I'll link around. If I've run out of cards, just check the description, there will be links available somewhere. So yeah, I do apologise if I'm repeating myself in terms of reviewing this, but I'm pretty sure I haven't reviewed the actual film. As of yet, I'm doing so just now. So it's such a weird story, basically following Arthur Dent and his weird friend called Ford as they basically hitchhike throughout the galaxy after the world is destroyed. Just when I thought that these characters that are described in the book are more humanoid than I would have imagined, the President Zaphod Beeblebrox, that's such a mouthful to say, popped up with his second hand and like third arm, so I was like, okay, this is what I was missing, and I couldn't remember that from like the first film, so seeing him looking humanoid and normal, I was like, that's not in the book. But again, it was a little while, like maybe a couple of years ago that I read the book, so again, things are hazy. But that just gave me instant satisfaction. I was like, okay, I can stop complaining mentally now. I actually found it pretty sad that Douglas Adams, who was the writer of the books, the series of stories, died before this came out. I think he died like a year before the film came out or something, so it's such a shame that you never got to see it like finalised, you know. But yeah, that's my review of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was quite fun, it's random, it's just high entertainment, enjoyable. So next up I watched Ironman, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So I decided to do this challenge thing where you're supposed to watch all the Linkin Marvel films in the run up to the Infinity Wars movie, and apparently if you watched one a week from the beginning of January, you would have watched them all just in time for the release of the Infinity Wars movie. So I actually saw Shantrina share this on Instagram, and though I started doing this like right at the end of January and I probably won't finish it in time, I thought it was still fun to do. It will create a nice kind of movie marathon because I actually haven't seen more than I'd like to admit Marvel films. Like, I haven't seen all of them, which is kind of strange. I think honestly they're a bit effortsome when you're someone like me that has a very bad attention span, and you're sitting in front of a long film and you start getting fidgety. That's one of those films. I mean, it continues to hold your attention because it's a lot of like high action going on, but a lot of the time when it's the quiet scenes I'm like buzzing around for something to do, and I think that's why I put off a lot of the Marvel films, which is sad to admit. And honestly, I feel like I can't call myself a true Marvel or superhero fan if I haven't watched like all the older ones and basically all of them, or the majority, shall we say. So I'm hoping to rectify that in this little challenge. I forgot the word. Challenge is what the word was. So Iron Man is one of the franchises that I hadn't seen before, which is crazy, you know, because it's Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr. is just So if you don't know, this is obviously the kind of origin story of how Iron Man became to be and how obviously Tony Stark became to be this superhero. Tony Stark is what I'd call an ironic hero. He's arrogant, smart, rich, fun to dislike but also to low-key love. I don't mean Loki as in Loki, I mean low-key. I'm such an idiot. Basically, it's just not what would spring to mind when I think of a traditional superhero. Especially when you consider after all he's been through to become Iron Man, you would have thought maybe he would have changed for the better. Nope, not really. He's still egotistical and arrogant. Pretty much remains unchanged. But I start to wonder, is that why he does this? Is it because it's a coping mechanism for him? Because he does endure a hell of a lot to become Iron Man. You know what I mean? But anyways, unconventional in his style of heroism, and I think that really works for him. I think the reason I initially didn't watch this film when it like was brought out or whatever was because I wasn't really that big on superheroes when I was around 12, which is when this roughly came out, I think. And this particular film seemed heavily influenced by war themes, which again, even to this day, doesn't really appeal to me as like a driving mechanism. But I'm dedicated to the cause now, and as I've already said, I can't really call myself a Marvel film if I haven't watched some of the basics. I was actually drawn to Pepper Potts the most initially. That sophisticated sash she showed in her very first scene of the film just had me shook to the core. I think I still missed the basics of the origins of Tony Stark becoming Iron Man, because again, the beginning of the film was pretty heavy on the military stuff, and honestly I did get a bit distracted and started scrolling through my phone, so I think that was an optimum moment for me to realise how things were piecing together, and I sort of missed that, but it was my own fault. Oh, the scene building the suit itself was epic. I didn't catch the name of like what appeared to be Stark's assistant in the beginning, but he was so kind. I think because I missed a bit in the beginning where I was being distracted, the introduction was a little bit hazy to me, and I was like, oh, he seems really mean, I don't know what's going on, but he was so kind, and I was like, oh. I don't like how he was kind of forgotten about as the film went on. Of course, Stan Lee makes his famous totally not subtle but still kind of low-key cameo, which I live for. Honestly, it's like a game of Where's Wally. It's like, where's Stan? There he is. Oh, really random to say, I know, but some of the clips of like the Iron Man suit really reminded me of the Iron Giant, if any of you have seen that film. I really want to watch that now because I haven't seen that since I was a child. Like, wow. Every now and then I see something on like Facebook or whatever where they say, oh, this film came out in this year, how old do you feel now? And oftentimes it's clips of the Iron Giant, and I'm like, oh, I really need to watch that again. And then there were the epic battle scenes that really reminded me of Power Rangers or like something from Transformers, like with these big bot things that were like blasting people apart, and well, not necessarily people, but cars and such, and it was just like, wow, this is gone crazy. It got crazy in such a short amount of time, and the ending just almost felt so abrupt. Honestly, I was literally sitting there at the end and I was like, is that it? It's finished? I guess at the time it did make for great sequel bait, and I did like that this particular copy that I watched included the end scene, like the end credit scene, because I know some films, when they're released to DVD, they don't always include that little bit, so sometimes that's why you're watching it in the cinema. It's a little bit of an extra treat. I do think as a whole the film could have been paced out a little bit more evenly, but generally I enjoyed this far more than I was expecting to, so yeah, Iron Man. Well done. After that I decided to watch The Hulk, which was the 2008 version, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So obviously, following the list that I mentioned previously, this was the next to watch on, you know, for that challenge thing. I think I may go back at a later date to watch the 2003 Hulk, just to kind of compare the two, see if there's anything major differently or what. And Lee, of course, is back at it again with his cameos, or I guess not again because obviously it was filmed ages ago, but it was interesting to see like the later cameos in comparison to some of the newer films, where I feel like he's a bit more subtle, if I remember correctly. But he came in quite early in this cameo. I was a little bit like shocked again. I was like, oh, he's there. I feel like there's some kind of dispute about the 2008 Hulk, because I did some research and I was a little bit confused, but I think this is a sort of, like, in my opinion, I would see this as a sort of sequel to the 2003 Hulk, because Bruce at this point already has the gamma ray poisoning, and he's trying to find a cure, which is like the main premise of the majority first half of the film. Apparently, through my research, it's a sort of reboot sequel hybrid to the 2003 one, and because of this weird sort of transition that it was, I felt like it left out some crucial information for me. I think it might have been because at the time they were filmed 2008, perhaps they assumed that a lot of people had already seen the 2003 version, which allegedly was quite a flop and quite like one of those things that nobody talks about. So maybe they assumed a lot of people saw that regardless of the fact of if they thought it was good or bad, so maybe they left out a big chunk of information, you know, assuming that you already knew it. Of course, I hadn't seen the 2003 version, obviously no Hulk's history generally, but it would have been nice to be filled in on that because I kind of felt incomplete and like I was missing something. I mean, the way Bruce kind of gets his gamma ray poisoning is sort of explained through conversation between other characters, and also at the beginning credits, like the opening credits, which I didn't realise until later on. So I guess it is told to you in that way, but I would have rather have been shown it. But I don't know, maybe there was a thing with time limits and such, I don't know. Oh, I really didn't like the shots of little dogs being like shot. Well, they weren't showing that, but it was implied, and then you saw the body, and I was just like, ugh. Anytime an animal looks injured or anything on a film or a TV show, that's me, I'm done. I'm like, no, I'm emotionally detaching myself from this. Honestly as well, I felt like there were a lot of running scenes that felt like high school bully sort of situation. I really couldn't take it seriously in this particular setting. To be honest, the majority of the scenes were quite slow and boring and didn't hold my attention for long at all, unfortunately. Betty Ross as a love interest really annoyed me, which is horrible for me to say because I really enjoy Liv Taylor as an actress. Like, I've seen her obviously in like The Lord of the Rings, and as Arwen, she is absolutely kick-ass. So I was kind of disappointed in her, I don't know, in her character in this, which is maybe harsh to say. I think it's because since I saw her in Lord of the Rings, I've kind of always been entranced by her, even though I've not really seen her in many more films aside from that. So seeing her in this, I was just like, oh, I feel like she's been a bit downgraded. But I'm not sure, was this before Lord of the Rings? I can't remember on dates, I do apologise. The ending had a really smooth transition into the build-up for the Avengers film, and actually got me really excited for these films, even though I know they're out and they're easily accessible. It was like I was watching it in the theaters or whatever for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, I can't wait till it releases. So it was nice that it like invoked those feelings within me. But overall, this wasn't a favourite by any stretch of the imagination, but it really helped in terms of like world building for me, plotting out the next films, and of course giving me a bit of background to the Incredible Hulk, you know. So yeah, I'd recommend it if you wanted some filler and kind of to, in your own mind, link up films, but it's not a necessity. There's always written works, you know, a quick wiki answers or whatever, and you'll see what you need to see in terms of facts. But I was still happy to have watched it, you know. So that is it for my wrap up for January 2018. Quite a strong reading film month, I would say. Nice strong entrance into the new year. Let me know what you've been reading and watching, and if you have any suggestions for me to check out and review possibly at a later date, I would be happy to know. So thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye.